So we are talking today about the British Isles. The British Isles. Now, before we start, I just want to ask you a question. You meet someone and you can't tell if they are English, Scottish, or Welsh. What should you ask them? Are you from the UK or are you English? What do you think you should ask them if you're not sure where they're from? Hello in the chat, Danielle, Sami Reyes, Nikki, Alyana, Aggie, great to see you all. So you meet someone and you can't tell if they are English, Scottish, or Welsh. What should you ask them? Are you from the UK or are you English? Now, here's the thing. You don't want to ask them if they're English. And this is because there is a lot of sensitivity in the United Kingdom about the different parts that make up the United Kingdom. And that is what we're going to talk about today. So without further ado, I would like to create a map of the United Kingdom in 3, 2, 1. There it is, a lovely map of the United Kingdom. And I'm going to break down what each bit of it means and how to refer to it. Because we may have heard of Great Britain, England, Scotland, the United Kingdom, Ireland, the British Isles. Well, let's figure out what each one means. So, my first clue to help you is to look at a British passport. What does it say on the British passport? It says, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. The United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And this is your first clue because Great Britain is this bit here. Great Britain is the name of an island. Great Britain is the name of an island. It is this bit of land starting from up here all the way down to there. And it includes England, Wales, and Scotland. This is Great Britain. And the reason why the passport says the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland is because Northern Ireland is not on Great Britain, but it is part of the country. It is part of the nationality. So your passport will say the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So it is actually called Great Britain, not because it's a fantastic, great country. I mean, it is in many ways as well. But actually, the great just refers to the fact that it is the biggest of the British Isles. So Great Britain is the biggest, it is the greatest in size of the British Isles, which includes Ireland, Great Britain, and then all of the little islands you see here, like the Isle of Man, Shetland, which is up here, some of the Scottish islands like Orkney, we've got the Isle of Wight down there. So there are lots of different islands that make up the British Isles. Now, let's talk about the countries that make up the United Kingdom. So we have England, which is very big, and most of the people in the United Kingdom live here. It's about 55 million people live in England. We have Scotland up here, very famous for its unique and very beautiful culture, actually. I think the Scottish have a really strong sense of identity. We have Wales here. And Wales you have to be especially careful of because you must never call a Welsh person English. It is a very, very offensive thing to do. Same with Scotland, actually. You don't want to call them English. They have their own nationality and their own identity. And then we have Northern Ireland, which is up here in the north of Ireland. Now, it's very important to say we have Great Britain, which is the name of this island. And this island here is called the Island of Ireland. And there are two different parts of the island of Ireland. Northern Ireland, which is part of the United Kingdom, and then Ireland, or the Republic Island of Ireland, which is its own country, completely separate from the United Kingdom. So if you meet an Irish person, you must never say, are you from the UK? So Northern Ireland is this little bit up here. Now, in the United Kingdom, we call Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and England countries. They are called the countries of the United Kingdom. So Scottish people will say Scotland is a country. Welsh people will say Wales is a country. English people will say England is a country. And Northern Irish people will say Northern Ireland is a country. Of course, internationally, they sort of work as one country in a way. But within that, we call them countries. So in other countries, it might be a similar situation to the states or different sections where they have different laws, their own parliaments, for example. But in the UK, you absolutely must say Scotland is a country. If you call Scotland like a territory of England, you will upset a lot of Scottish people. And it's worth mentioning, Scotland has its own parliament that applies to Scotland. Northern Ireland has its own parliament that applies to Northern Ireland. Wales has its own parliament that applies to Wales. England does not have its own parliament. England has a government in London that looks after the whole of the United Kingdom. So England is the only country in the United Kingdom that does not have its own parliament. Now, there's a few other things to note. Obviously, we've got Great Britain, which is the big island, the island of Ireland, part of which belongs to the UK. But then we have lots of these little islands everywhere here. You can see things like Orkney, Shetland, the Isle of Man, the Isle of Wight. So some of them belong to the different countries of the UK. So, for example, the Shetland Islands, which are up here, are part of Scotland. Then we have Anglesey, which is here, which is part of Wales. And we have the Isle of Wight, which is part of England. Legally, it is part of England. But then there are some other ones where it's a little bit confusing. The Isle of Man, which is here, which is kind of part of the United Kingdom, but also has its own separate system and laws and tax system. And so it's kind of like half in the UK and half not, and it doesn't belong to any of the other countries. Similarly, with the Channel Islands, which are down here by France, they also have their own laws, their own parliament, and they are kind of independent. So the Isle of Man is independent, and these little Channel Islands down here are independent. So it's a bit of a confusing situation, the UK, but I would say the broad points to remember are, this is Great Britain here, this is the island of Ireland, this is Northern Ireland, Scotland, England, and Wales, and this country in green is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So, it's time for a quiz. Let's see how well everyone was listening. I'm very excited for this. Which of these is not part of the United Kingdom? Which of these is not part of the United Kingdom? Wales, Scotland, England, Northern Ireland, or Ireland? Which of these is not a part of the United Kingdom? What do we think? So let's see if we remember. Here's England, here's Scotland, here's Wales, and here is Northern Ireland. And here is Ireland. And if you can see it, it's in grey white, I guess, because it is not part of the United Kingdom. So Ireland is not part of the United Kingdom. Which of these is not on the island of Great Britain? Which of these is not on the island of Great Britain? England, Scotland, Wales, or Northern Ireland? Which of these is not on the island of Great Britain? I'll wait for your answers before I start pointing. So, looks like people are getting this right. Very, very good. So we have England, we have Wales, we have Scotland, and these are all on Great Britain. And here we have Northern Ireland, which is on the island of Ireland. What a sentence. Northern Ireland is on the island of Ireland, but Ireland is not part of the UK. So that's where it's confusing. Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, but the rest of Ireland is not. Next question for you. Which of these does not have its own parliament? Scotland, Wales, England, or Northern Ireland? Which of these does not have its own parliament? So I'll tell you quickly the capital cities of each of the countries of the United Kingdom. The capital of Northern Ireland is Belfast, which you can see here. The capital of Scotland is Edinburgh, which you can see here. The capital of Wales is Cardiff, which you can see here. And the capital of England, but also the capital of the United Kingdom, is London, which is here. And the Parliament in London is the Parliament for the whole country of the United Kingdom, and it is not it is not just for England. And so England does not have its own parliament. England doesn't have its own parliament. So, the Isle of Man, which is this little blob here, the Isle of Man is part of which country? Is it part of Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, or none? Is it part of Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, or none of them? I have a friend from the Isle of Man, actually, and I'll tell you a funny story. She had a car registered in the Isle of Man, but it was in England. And if she parked illegally, she used to get parking tickets. And she used to get parking ticket after parking ticket after parking ticket, but they could never ever find her because her car was registered in the Isle of Man. And so she actually never had to pay a parking fine ever and used to just park wherever she wanted. And that is because Northern Isle of Man is not part of any of these countries. It is its own thing. Very much so its own thing. And then my final question, and this is just to see if you know anything about English history. Which of these is not seen as Celtic? So the Celtic people are the original people from thousands and thousands of years ago of the British Isles. The Celtic people. And historically, there was a wave after wave of different people from Europe. And there are some people who are still very much in touch with their Celtic culture. And I want to see if you know which country is Celtic. And I'll give you a clue. They have their own languages, and they are not related to English. So, Ireland has the language Irish, which is a Celtic language. Scotland has a language, Scots Gaelic, which is its own language and is a Celtic language. Wales has a language which is called Welsh, and that is a Celtic language. English does not have a language like that. Well, there's regions that have their kind of own Celtic languages, but generally the English language is a Germanic language. And that is because the English people are seen as Germanic, sort of mix of Germanic and French and Scandinavian. Whereas the Scots, the Welsh, and the Northern Irish are Celtic people. The English are not generally. So, that concludes my stream about the United Kingdom and the British Isles. So just remember, the British Isles includes all of these islands, and there's hundreds of them. All of these islands. Then we've got the island of Ireland, the island of Great Britain, and then the country of the United Kingdom, which you can divide into 4 countries: Scotland, Northern Ireland, England, and Wales. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. This has been a lot of fun, and I hope you learned something.